This is a story of a near tragedy. It's the story of Steve Howe and what happened to him on one seemingly ordinary day on the job. It's the story of an instant when things went horribly wrong, and the years it has taken to overcome the odds and return to health, life, and work. It's also the story of a network of medical and rehabilitation professionals. From the people who responded instantly to an emergency situation to those who worked patiently and tirelessly to assist in Steve's recovery and rehabilitation. And behind it all, there's an employer who stood by their worker and his family throughout the many months and still remain with him as his life and career look brighter every day. For a long time, things looked pretty bleak for Steve Howe.
I was a faller and an operator for Peter Kiewit's son's Sea to Sky Highway project. Normally in a job like this, you work in groups of two, but in some cases you use machine assist.
It was 11:30 in the morning, and Steve and an excavator operator were working together. Steve was standing on the side of a gully, several meters above the excavator and the tree.
I was working with the excavator operator to move the last tree for the day. I first do the undercut, and then I do the back cut. Then I guide the machine into position, and then I clear. I thought I was in the safe zone, and then the boom swung back towards me, and then the bucket dropped right into my pelvis.
It is pure chance that the angle and force of the blow didn't kill Steve on the spot. For workers in logging and heavy construction, the lesson is that the workplace can be dangerous. The smallest miscalculation or unexpected action can have drastic consequences.
As the bucket hit me, I felt the teeth penetrate my pelvis and in my abdomen. As it pulled me down, branches and rocks and sticks were going into my back, and then the teeth let go of me, and I rolled into the tree that I fell and towards the machine.
Steve was treated immediately with the first aid resources that were available.
I started hearing some chatter on the radio in regards to a serious accident. I asked what had happened. He said an excavator bucket had hit him.
When we first arrived on scene, we found Steve at the bottom of a gully in a horrendous mess with a first aid attendant trying their best to take care of him. He looked pretty grim at that point.
The paramedic, he didn't think Steve was gonna survive.
The quick and appropriate response was critical in keeping Steve alive.
One of the hardest things I've ever done in my Kiewit career was notify Steve's mother that her son had been in a very serious accident.
When Grayson called me on the phone, it was mother's worst nightmare. He couldn't tell me what was wrong with my son. I was so upset, I asked him, "You owe me this. Is my son dead?"
During the transport, we talked to Steve with a continuous running commentary in order to keep his blood pressure up and to kind of keep his spirits up for the transport.
I was still awake when we landed.
He finally looked up and said, "Can I stop talking now? I just want to rest. Is it okay if I go to sleep?" We said yes. And he didn't wake up again for 3 months.
We knew from the get-go that he was in very serious trouble. His blood pressure was low. He had this horrible gaping wound in the middle of his body. His pelvis was obviously severely crushed. His blood pressure was beginning to drop, and he was beginning to lose consciousness. We certainly were very unsure that he would survive that first week. So Steve is our miracle man. He's not just a miracle of modern trauma care, and certainly that played a huge role in his survival. But he's really a miracle of one man's determination to overcome not only major life-threatening injuries, but all the disabilities that followed after that.
I got the call that Steve was in an accident, and I went into shock.
I heard about the accident when I was out on our patio studying, and Dana had come to me and said that there was a message left on the voicemail that he wasn't expected to live.
When we first saw him in the intensive care unit, we were in shock, and we didn't know whether to say hello or goodbye. Nurses were trying to pump blood into him as fast as it was going out.
For anyone facing long-term treatment, one of the most important factors in a successful recovery is their personal support group. In this, Steve was and is blessed.
My wife and I live in Kelowna, and I'm a pastor at a church there, so it was very difficult to keep on working at the same time as Stephen was in the hospital. But we managed to figure it out, working 3 days in Kelowna and then commuting to Vancouver to spend 4 days with him in the hospital.
Kiewit was concerned that the family might rack up terrible hotel costs or worry about finances at a time when they had enough emotional stress. So the company stepped in and provided them with a suite to live in the Falls Creek area, a few blocks from the hospital. The family moved there for the duration.
The support and help that Kiewit gave to our family was absolutely incredible. It was actually more than we could have even asked or hoped for.
The most important thing in helping me with my rehabilitation is definitely my family and my fiance. They were there when I was sleeping. They were there when I woke up. They never left me, and they basically had shifts. So I always had someone in the room so I didn't feel alone.
Every day in the hospital, I was waiting for some kind of movement from Steve, and the one day he held and squeezed my hand was amazing.
I remember one time I went to visit Stephen in the hospital, and the nurse said, "I have a surprise for you." So I looked at Stephen, and he looks at me and he goes, "I love you, Mom."
And I was like 76 pounds, and I looked like crap. I had nose tubes, I had something in my throat, I had wires all over me, being told I could never walk again. And she came every day and said that I was still beautiful, and I can't even say that I look beautiful.
Over several months at Vancouver General Hospital, Steve underwent no fewer than 60 separate surgeries. Steve's pelvis was rebuilt. His broken spine was repaired. Damaged intestines and muscles were stitched. Skin and muscle were grafted.
I had a general surgeon, a plastic surgeon, a vascular surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, and a physiatrist, and a whole other team of doctors.
The first time I saw Steve, he was in an operating room. He'd already had his major wounds dealt with, and he was left with significant wounds to his abdomen and groin, as well as a limb which was questionable as to whether we could salvage it. The reality of the severe nature of Steve's injuries made us think that he would either die of infection or possibly lose a leg.
After Steve got his full leg brace, which locked his knee into a straight position, he was able to achieve a lot more independent walking. He became independent with elbow crutches. He was able to do stairs. He was able to get in and out of his truck. He practiced getting on and off the floor. Basically, the sky became the limit once he got that brace. He became very, very mobile.
Steve's done amazingly well. He's well out of the norm in terms of the recovery of his leg and all his other injuries. He's exceeded all expectations in terms of our anticipated results for Steve.
It was a pleasure to work with Steve. He is a great kid. He has so much potential now.
In the 20 years that I've been a paramedic, Steve suffered some of the most grievous and horrendous injuries I've ever seen anybody survive. Really, it all came down to the fact that everything worked. The emergency services did their part. He got the best doctors, the best hospital, the best nurses, and the best care possible, as well as the fact that he was young and strong enough to survive, and with the support of his family, he did extremely well, beyond anybody's expectations.
Steve shouldn't be here. Steve is here only because of his determination and some very lucky breaks from the medical support that he got.
My average day to day is me hopping on my mountain bike with a homemade training wheel that I made. I ride my bike to the pool. I do an hour and a half at the pool, and I ride home. I get my truck. I drive to the gym. I do an hour in the gym, sometimes with a trainer or by myself. I then have to go to physio for an hour, and then I go to massage.
He's back at work now, running an excavator a couple of days a week. In his spare time, when he's not rehabilitating, Steve's also furthering his education, completing his high school equivalency and qualifying to go on to post-secondary. These are an attempt for Steve to join the Kiewit family as a supervisor in the future.
Steve is back to work with Kiewit, and that's not all. In his spare time, he's been telling his story in live appearances and in print to help raise funds for the Vancouver General and the G.F. Strong Institute. It's his way of expressing his gratitude for the dedication and support he received during his months there.
Steve has this passion about him, this zest for life that very few people exude, and everybody just loved being in his company.
Melissa's still with me after all the challenges, and it's been 2.5 years, and now we're looking forward to spending a lifetime together.
Steve and I will be getting married in Mexico. I'm looking forward to our special day.
Thanks for watching. The story of my recovery is not over yet. I have had 60 surgeries so far, and there are more to come. My life has been changed forever. I want you to remember that there are real risks in construction projects. When heavy equipment and people work together, workers are at risk. To prevent an accident like mine, remember these simple rules. Always make eye contact with the operator before you enter his work zone or swing radius. Never assume that he knows that you are there. If you can't see the operator can't see you. Know the pinch points. Never put any part of your body in a pinch point. Machines move quickly. An accident can happen in a split second. The operator doesn't know what you are going to do next. They can't read your mind. Communication between the operator and the crew is the key to preventing an accident. The best way to be sure that everyone understands the risks is to do a JHA, a job hazard analysis, with a step-by-step plan before you begin an operation. Above all, remember that your family is counting on you to be Kiewit safe.